I've not exactly been fired from like a lecturing job, but I've not been asked back to,
Oh my God,
as a
really?
creative writing lecturer. Yeah, well, when you read the book, I think you'll understand why. It's pretty dark and pretty deranged, and they probably were just like, yeah, I'm not sure if this is good for university branding.
Hi, I'm Jen, and I run events for writers. I've had some small success with my own writing, but what I'd love is the big fish publishing contract with the literary agent that all writers dream about. And how best to find out about how to do that than to speak to the people who've experienced it themselves. This is the Prose and Pastries Podcast, and I'm your host, Jen Flannery. Today I'm talking to an award-winning author about how to make writing a habit and how his new novel may cause some controversy. His last novel won the Romantic Novelists Association Contemporary Romantic Novel Award, and they're about to release their sixth novel, a comic thriller. So you could say he's quite a versatile writer. Please welcome author Liam Brown.
Hi Liam, welcome to the show. I'm absolutely delighted for you to join us for our very first episode of Prose and Pastries. Thank you very much.
It's an honour to be here.
It's January. Are you much of a resolutions man?
I make resolutions on a daily basis, 365 days a year. But then that's at sort of 8 in the morning, and by about 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I've broken most of them. But nearly all of them are you like finish the damn book you're supposed to be writing and get off Instagram. So that's where I'm at with resolutions.
Standard, I think, for most writers there.
Yeah, I heard someone recently say to me actually that they make their resolutions in spring, so they wait till sort of like March, April, because it's like just right off the beginning part of the year. Forget, be kind to yourself, and once the sun comes out, that's when you should start kind of thinking about personal growth and renewal and all the rest of it. So maybe that's a way to go. I don't know.
Firstly, we should probably talk about Evergreens that won the Romantic Novelist Award in 2024. We've spoken about this before, how when I came across you, I think you were writing, I don't know whether you'd have called it speculative fiction when you released Broadcast, and I used to read a lot of your older books that you've got, and obviously sort of changing genre into something that was romantic fiction. I mean, how did that come about? Was it a real sort of obvious and deliberate move to do that, or how did that come about?
Yeah, it was all part of the master plan to get filthy rich, really. That was what I decided. No, absolutely not true at all, of course. My first novel was published over 10 years ago now, so 11 years. And I think in terms of genre, maybe that was sort of like a war novel or a satire. It wasn't until my third novel, Broadcast, that something sort of speculative began to creep in there. And I wrote a couple of novels in that vein. I've really tried to be keen not to get tied into genre, because I think they're generally quite artificial, kind of like boundaries that are put together by marketing departments of publishers. When it came to writing Evergreens, I was just trying to write a story about some people. I had no idea I was writing, a romantic. I mean, I would still dispute, is it a romantic novel? It's certainly a love story, but it was really the characters that kind of grabbed my attention and made me want to write about them. So for people who don't know, basically it tells a story of two people who meet and fall in love, but one of them is essentially going to live forever, and the other one is going to live a normal life. And it's what happens when you kind of are divided by something as massive as that. So that's what I was doing with Evergreens. What I will say about the winning the Romantic Novelist Association's award, firstly, it was a massive honour and a surprise. But going along to that award ceremony was so refreshing compared to a lot of like the literary events I go to. So I'm from Birmingham, and I don't want to sound rough around the edges, but like quite a lot of literary events I've been to are quite highfalutin. It's a lot of people using words I don't understand and have been educated in a certain way, and the Romantic Novelist Association people were so welcoming and so like nice and what I would count as normal. Almost predominantly female. Like I was like basically, I think maybe one of like 4 guys in a room full of 200 people, which was really interesting. And I kind of got a sense like these people are all super successful. They're all writing, they're all telling interesting stories that are being read in massive, massive numbers. Like, some of the sales they were talking about were just astonishing. And when I left there, I just thought it's really interesting. There seems to be sort of like this snobbery around romantic literature, or sometimes called like chick lit or something. that I can only put down to sort of misogyny. Like, I think that's what it comes down to, is the fact that if it was predominantly men writing these stories, and men do write love stories, I'm one of them, that perhaps it would be given a bit more of the prestige that perhaps it deserves. So I don't know. And so, yeah, I although I wasn't aware that I was writing romantic fiction, I will absolutely, have that award with pride. And, I think, love stories are the essential to some of the greatest stories that have ever been told. So I'm happy to keep telling them.
I go to lots of different events, and you're absolutely right. There is this kind of little network of kind of writing where you do feel sometimes that if you write something more commercial, that you're not really seen as a real writer sometimes. I think we've spoken before, like when I first started out, I used to write short stories that were horror short stories. And again, horror, I think it has the same, that same sort of thing where people kind of look down at you a little bit if you write any particular genre. But so romance fiction, as far as I'm aware, is like the biggest selling genre at the minute as well. And then how do you feel about the sort of whole romantasy boom? Because that in particular, I think at the moment, it's having such a moment, sort of romantasy, and then all these other subgenres of romance.
So I've never read any romantasy, and like I am basically pro anything that gets people reading. I feel like increasingly, like, reading has become sort of a legacy act, and writing a legacy kind of craft, because if you get on a bus, if you get on a train, people are looking at their phones, they're not picking up books anymore. So to see people getting so excited, whatever kind of content they're reading, I think that can only be a good thing. But yeah, I'm not a fantasy reader particularly. But I know that like my son's got some teenage friends who absolutely kind of love that stuff, and there's a whole sort of like TikTok communities like built around them. But yeah, it's interesting, and I think it's just heartening that kind of books are selling and people are getting excited about them.
And then we've got the exciting news this year that your new novel, fanfiction, is going to be coming out next year. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, fan fiction I'm super excited about. It's coming out in 2027, and it is probably the most personal novel I've written to date. In some ways, I'm also amazed that it's being published, because it was sort of written as like a howl of desperation or cry of anguish against the industry or something. It's it's about a middle-aged creative writing teacher who is sort of drowning in life. His kind of family life is falling apart, and his career is falling apart, and he doesn't really know what romantasy is. And he steals a student's work and passes it off as his own. So that's really the part of the novel. And then I don't want to spoil it where it goes, but it goes crazy from there. And probably what the really great thing about writing the book was, it gave me an opportunity to dip into loads of different styles. So there is actually a little bit of sort of romantasy kind of satire in there. There's some sci-fi satire. There is romance satire. There's all sorts going on. It's also essentially, I guess, a crime novel, and it kind of satirizes crime novels as well. So there's a lot going on. But as a piece of writing, the people who have read it and I've shown it to have been really excited by it, as excited as I was writing it. So I'm super looking forward to what readers make of it. I am less looking forward to what potential future employers might make of it, because, I don't know if I can say, but like, I've not exactly been fired from a lecturing job, but I've not been asked back as a creative writing lecturer. Yeah, well, when you read the book, I think you'll understand why. It's pretty dark and pretty deranged, and they probably were just like, I'm not sure if this is good for university branding.
Assuming that you're a fiction writer, so it can't be based on. I hope it's not based on a true story if you've stolen some students' work.
Well, I'm obviously never going to. I'm never going to admit to anything without my solicitor present.
No comment.
No comment. But more broadly speaking, I think, like obviously plagiarism is one of the major themes of the book. And in a happy slash devastatingly unhappy accident, I think we find ourselves in a place as writers where, with AI it being so prevalent now, like the giant plagiarism machine that's kind of been forced onto everybody, I think that's another really interesting angle. It's like, who do stories belong to anymore? And I think I can envisage a very near future where increasingly people are questioning whose stories belong to who, because from what I can see, if people are using the technology that's out there, essentially they're just nicking other people's stuff and kind of passing it off as their own. So that's kind of, we'll see whether that theme maybe chimes as well with readers.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine it will, absolutely. I think there's a sort of daily debates, isn't there, about the use of AI, and it's getting more and more sophisticated as we go along as well, presumably because it could just scrape more information. Yeah.
It's still completely rubbish though. Like I put in recently, write a short story in the style of Liam Brown, and it was terrible. It was really bad.
So I was talking to my writers from my coffee morning this morning and asking them, I said to them, I'm going to be chatting with you this afternoon, what would they like to ask you? And they said the thing that they were most interested about really was just hearing about your kind of writing journey. So how is it that you first came to writing? Is it something you've always done? And then how did you make that move from sort of writing your initial kind of first book into being a published writer?
Wow. Okay, so that's a really interesting, and I can totally understand why they'd want to know that, because when I was starting out as a writer, it felt completely impossible that I could ever kind of break through sort of the walls that were up there that I think kind of held back publication. I've always been interested in stories, so like we had to do an assembly in year 5, so that's about 10 years old or something, or maybe it's year 6, the end of junior school, where they said, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I was like, I want to be a writer. So for whatever reason, basically writing stories, or maybe just telling lies and making stuff up, has been the only thing I've ever been any good at. I have no other discernible skills, honestly. Like, you should see me trying to put shelves up or kind of assemble an IKEA bed frame. It's just a nightmare. I really am good for nothing other than writing stories. There's no kind of defined career path for writers. So like when you are a teen, I remember saying to, this was in senior school when it was careers advice, and they said, what do you want to be? And I said, I don't know, a writer. And they went, no, pick something real. And it's like, okay. And that really was the genuine advice. And I was like, I don't know. So I kind of just got loads of random jobs. I did like painting, decorating. I worked in a warehouse. I worked at the Sea Life Centre. I flipped burgers. I served pulled pints, and just kind of bounced around doing things. It wasn't until I went on a creative writing course. I went as a mature student to university. I went to the University of Greenwich and did a creative writing course, and that is when I think I really kind of felt like, oh, maybe this could be something. This could be something that I could try and pursue professionally. There's some debate, and I go into this debate in the novel fan fiction about the nature of learning creative writing. Is it something that can be taught? I think I always find this fascinating because you never get this pushback for almost any of the other arts. You never get someone goes to art school and practices learning how to oil paint. They're never pushed back and go, well, why don't you just know how to do that intrinsically? Yeah. It's insane. Oh, you can't just play the violin. You had to go and have lessons. What's wrong with you? Are you an idiot? So I think that's a nonsense argument, and certainly it was very beneficial from a technical perspective to get kind of 3 years of learning what makes stories tick. But more than anything, in addition to that, I think the fact that it just gave me the time to commit to pieces of writing, that is what I took away from university and subsequent creative writing lessons. That's the first thing I think is, first of all, you got to kind of just have the ambition to go and do something, believe in yourself enough to go and do it, and then commit the time, put it down to actually write and build a routine. So write every day if you can, and not be afraid to fail, to kind of put stuff down and to complete things and finish things and then send them out into the world. Now, the very first things I ever got published were, I don't even know if they still exist because I'm 42. I'm at the age where you have to go, how old are you? I'm 40-something, 42. I'm 42. So like 20 years ago when I was very first getting things published, there were blogs. I don't know if there are still blogs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
People
they're
still write
good,
blogs.
great. There are still blogs. Well, that's what the first things that published me, like little kind of obscure little blogs that kind of published like short stories. And I'd send stories out, and sometimes I get them rejected, and sometimes someone will go, yeah, I'll put that on my weird little website for you. And they were literally the first things that I ever got published. And then from that, there was a couple of magazines that I managed to place short stories in. You kind of building confidence around yourself, and you kind of building like if you can point to things you've done. It's like, well, I've been publishing a few blogs, I've got some magazines, I placed in a competition, I didn't win it, but maybe I got longlisted or shortlisted. All of this stuff helps to people go, oh, maybe they're good, maybe I should trust my instinct, I think this is good. So I think that's really important. And when I see people kind of fail to get their work out there, sometimes it's they go straight to, I've written the greatest thing ever, I'm just going to send it straight to agents. And then they're surprised when the agents are like, what else have you been doing? Like, what have you been building? So I guess what I'm saying is, in a sort of roundabout way, is building momentum is massively important when you're trying to get published, and building momentum through kind of sending off to wherever you can to get your work published, whether it's online or in magazines, and applying for competitions. Before my first novel was published in 2015, I had two novels that I couldn't get published. They were both decent novels. They were good. When I look back, I'm like, okay, I can see why they probably didn't get published. The first novel just drew blanks, but the second novel, I actually entered into a competition, like these sort of first novel competitions, and I got second place. And it's like first place was like £1,000 and a publishing contract, untold glory and riches. Second place was like a £10 W.H. Smith voucher.
They always are like that, aren't they?
It's like, yay! I can almost afford a book. I can afford half a hardback. But the publisher said to me that like we loved this novel. In fact, we argued whether it should be first place. In the end, we decided absolutely this is never going to sell. But we'll happily read your next book if you send it to us. And so that's what I did. I wrote another novel and wrote it to them. And I'd kind of I had a way in at that point, and that became my first novel, Real Monsters. So entering that competition, although I didn't win it, was a way of, I guess, building a network of people. And it kind of meant that other people were invested in me to kind of see some success. And a promise just of reading my work instead of just kind of landing like cold on someone's doorstep and going, what the hell is this? Like, I've never heard of this person before. It's really tough. So I think there's definitely some advice picked in there, but like for how you can approach things when you are kind of just very first starting. The other, like, all writing should be something that you're doing because you love, and it is, and it should be a work of art. Definitely something that you're not just thinking about like, I want this to make me rich. That's a terrible strategy. It's never going to work. Like, go and learn how to code. Probably don't even do that anymore with AI. I don't know what you do. Go and learn how to use the stock market, or become president of America if you want to enrich yourself and your friends. You're not going to do it through writing, probably. So, write something that you actually care about and want to do. It's a long process, and it's going to take ages, and you're going to break your heart multiple times. So you might as well do something that you love and care about and believe is good. But having said that, it's also really important to remember that, like, you're creating a product that is also a piece of art and it's something that you love. And this product is something that potentially, like, massive organizations are going to invest loads of money to then try and do something incredibly difficult. And that incredibly difficult thing is to try and stand out amidst the 200,000 books that are published in the UK every single year. So you are trying to, like, balance those two things. And the way that I have tried to balance them over the course of my decade plus career now is, firstly, at the very beginning, to envisage that book as something that you can see on a shelf. You're not trying to sell an abstract idea. You're trying to sell something concrete and physical. Like, see the title. If the title sounds like the kind of book that you would buy on a shelf, that's a good start. Like, try and just picture what the cover might look like. That's great. And then also, like, what's your pitch? 200,000 books a year. You want me just because it's this beautiful, amazing piece of art that's kind of, you've put your soul and heart into, you think that's enough? That's not enough. I want to hear your, like, 15-second pitch that I go, wow, what? A writer steals a student's work and passes it off as their own.
And then get sacked.
And then gets sacked and then kidnaps the student. Like this is what you want. You go, what? Okay, I'll read that. That sounds fascinating. Or hang on, somebody has a microchip put into their brain that live streams their thoughts 24 hours a day, and so you can see everything that they're thinking. Like just a little kind of like package it up like it's something someone would want to buy. And when I'm starting out, that's the first thing I do. That is the very first thing I do. People sometimes say to me, like, oh, where do you get your ideas from? It's like, having ideas is not the problem. Having too many ideas is actually the problem. Like I will not live long enough to write all of the ideas that I've got for books. Right? Like having ideas, but then trying to see which of those books has any chance of finding an audience beyond my own amusement. That is the challenge. And so the very first thing I'll do is like, okay, pitch it before I've written it. Pitch like literally 3 paragraphs and a banging title, hopefully. And if I've got that, I'm like, okay, right, now I will begin. And I will quite often have that blurb like stuck to my wall, in my face every single day. And it may change as the novel takes me in unexpected directions, and it probably should change, but it's always there as sort of the shining castle on the hill that you can march/trudge towards as you kind of endlessly kind of just day after day kind of slam down the words and call yourself a terrible person and try not to lose faith or hope along the way.
I was going to ask you about like whether you'd got any advice, but you've given tons of it there, so that's fantastic. Thank you very much. So you said that you write every single day. Do you have a particular place that you write? I'm always really fascinated to sort of talk to authors because everybody obviously has their own sort of ways of doing it.
Physically, I am in now like a sort of shed at the bottom of my garden, which is good because it's going to a physical space. My first 4 novels I wrote perched at the end of my kitchen table, surrounded by kids, noise, mess, chaos, which was fine, but it is so much nicer to have like a kind of a place where you can kind of go, which I think helps to form a routine. It's kind of like, I'm going to work, don't disturb me. This is time that needs to be protected. Even though I am a professional novelist, I don't like write all day every day. I write about 2 hours a day, really. I write in the evening. I write between sort of 8 p.m. and 10 p.m. every night. That's basically when I show up and write. I write even if I don't feel like writing. I write if I'm sick. I write if I'm tired. I write if I'm just like my whole world is falling apart. It is very rare that I won't write. Sometimes I'll write the worst writing that it's possible to write, and I will spend 2 hours just writing, just like, oh my god, what is this? But I've got something down, and there might be a good sentence in there somewhere. For me, that's the only way it's achievable. I know lots of other people can do it in different ways. They can write in sprints. They can write in different ways, but a novel feels like such an impossibly long thing to sustain, and not just kind of in terms of kind of physically compiling the words, but also just to hold in your head, like to hold like something that's so big and complex. And because I'm terrible at planning, quite often I'm halfway through a novel before I actually understand what it's about. So I'm kind of always working things out on the page and trying to like tease out themes and resonances and all those kind of deeper things. And so I'm trying to hold that all together. And I think if I leave a gap, I lose momentum. And also if I leave a gap, fear seeps in, and doubt and fear are the biggest killer of any form of creativity, whether that's music, which I also do a lot of, like I'm a songwriter. But the moment you start kind of like allowing yourself to hear that sort of evil demon on your shoulder telling you, you're no good, you're worthless, all those reviewers were right on Amazon. Like that is when you will just get paralysis. And also worrying that it's like, oh, no one's ever going to buy this kind of obscure weird thing I'm writing now. All that stuff you just need to put to the back of your mind. If you were able to write a compelling pitch at the beginning, you've got something to work towards, because you're like, well, when I started off, this felt like a really good idea. I need to see it through. And only then will I really be able to judge. I'm certain that great artists, Van Gogh, they never just kind of just filled a quarter of a canvas and were like, this isn't working. You get to the end, and you know what? The great thing is, once you kind of filled that canvas, you can go back over it, you can sketch in the detail, I've stretched this metaphor way too far anyway, but You get the point. So yeah, so for me, I do write every day, and that is one of the reasons to ward away the fear fairies, and to just kind of maintain momentum. I keep track of how many words I'm writing, which is really just as a way of kind of holding myself to account. So I will have a notebook next to me. I write on a laptop, but have a notebook next to me, and I will occasionally write notes. I also have a whiteboard on my wall, which is helpful as I kind of like just throw down. Sometimes I need to kind of throw down ideas. I'd say the other thing I do is, I should have said this at the beginning, before I start writing, is I will generally sketch the arc of a novel. So in addition to writing that sort of elevator pitch, I will try and roughly divide the plot into 5 points, essentially beginning, middle, end, with rising action and falling action, and a nice kind of reversal in the middle if I can. It sounds really obvious, but it's like, yeah, stuff's got to happen, then it's got to keep happening. And like, that is where just kind of making sure you've got, at least a rudimentary understanding of the shape of the novel. I'm not a super deep planner. I'm not planning scene by scene. But I will try and kind of basically understand where it's going in terms of like the overall feeling of the book. And then the final thing I will always try and do is in each scene is to upend readers' expectations continuously. Because if you can guess what's going to happen, why are you going to continue reading? It's like continue like, oh wow, didn't see that coming. I think it's human nature to continuously just try and like read ahead of the writer. You always, whenever I'm reading, I'm going, I don't know I know what's going to happen. And when it doesn't pan out how you expected it to do, and it doesn't have to just be like wild twists, but just things just don't quite go where you thought they were going to go, I find that is a compelling reason for a reader to keep on reading. And at the end of the day, that is the biggest challenge. There are so many distractions in modern life. There is always a dishwasher that needs emptying. There is always a cat or dog that needs feeding, or children that you need to have a heart-to-heart with, or tell them, please, for the love of God, tidy your bedroom. There is always something better you should be doing with your time than reading. There's a lot of things that are calling you, and that's without all of the digital distractions, the endless kind of noise of social media or kind of email admin, or just life is pulling you away from books. And so the first opportunity to kind of go and attend to that stuff, you will take it, and most people will take it. So you got to give your readers a reason to keep on, and not like, once you've got them, if you've got them for that first sentence, you got to then just hang on to them and keep them. I just read Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver, sold $1 million+ copies, but she like literally is making promises throughout the book, and she it's written, it's like, and of course what happens in 10 years time, and you're just like, I guess I'm going to have to keep reading, and that's all you want, that's all you can do. So
like when I organise the retreats, I often come across sort of people who are setting things up, and I'll be checking out venues and things, and you always get somebody who's like, I'd love to write a book, but I can't because I haven't got the time, I've got a wife, and I've got a dog that needs walking, and I've got a job, and all of that. And I always think, I'm always really polite and just go, that's a shame, if you're ever interested, check us out. But I often think it's that idea, isn't it? It isn't that writers have got more time than anyone else, it's just that they protect it and they find it, even if it is in those small little bits. So I'm similar to you in that I like to write a little bit every day, but I write very, very small amount. I think it's that big thing that people, when they first start writing, think that you need to be able to sit down and write this epic thing, and actually it's just the showing up every day and doing that little bit of hard work every day that actually gets the book written.
Absolutely, 100%. And I wanted to say as well, Jen, because I know you organised these secret retreats, and I actually went on one of these when you were first setting them up, and like it's so great to have that pocket of time that you can take for yourself to go away and write. It's really rare, particularly like most people don't have the luxury of sitting in sort of an ivory tower and just kind of holding their quill and just go, allow me to commune with the muse for 10 hours. It's not like that in real life for most people. So those things are really, really special. Nor can most people afford these bloody week-long retreats that I won't say the name of the companies that run them, but that are like thousands of pounds to go off. And it's like sometimes just a day is all you need to really kickstart. So I was working on fan fiction when I went to the secret retreats that you went to, and I made massive strides on that novel, just literally taking that pocket of time away from my day-to-day life and being able to kind of just sit somewhere. And I tell you what, sit somewhere that I didn't have ready access to the internet, that is the most useful thing in the whole world. I probably should have said that earlier, when I was talking about routines, but that is like routine number one, like hide your mother-loving phone, get it out of there, disconnect. You can do your research at another time. Like, if you're going to write, sit down and write, and don't let the evil tentacles of the World Wide Web strangle you.
I'm really looking forward to you coming along for the retreat in a few weeks' time, when we'll obviously get to chat a little bit more about all of this. Thank you so much for your time, and I'll catch up with you soon.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, Jen.